This tradition from Shakyamuni, poverty is a virtue. Poverty does not mean lack of wealth, but poverty means free from the greed, free from desire. Even though Shakyamuni was a prince, he became a beggar. He gave up everything, and he walked on the street and shared what he awakened to with people in poverty. He received food from people, and that was the original Buddhist teaching. So when I became a monk and started practice at Antaiji, our practice was completely supported by begging. We didn't charge anything to the people who come to practice with us. That way of life, without thinking about income and possession, was really something attracted, me. During 5 years at Antaiji, I practiced in that way. So we had almost no personal possession. In 1975, Uchiyama Roshi, my teacher, retired. Before that, when I started to practice at Antaiji, there are many Westerners coming to practice with him, but he didn't speak any Western language. But he wanted to teach those Western people. So he asked his disciples to study English. And he asked almost all of his disciples, but only 3 of us said yes. And I was one of them. I was not really interested in studying English at all. But somehow I couldn't say no. He sent those 3 of us to English school in Osaka. So I started to study English. So when Uchiyama Roshi retired from Antaiji, he asked those 3 people to come to this country. And we bought a small piece of land in Western Massachusetts. And we had nothing. We just cut the trees and built a small house, and we started to practice there. When I went there, none of us had even a driver's license. And also we didn't have any financial support from Japan or from this country. So we had to support our life. Of course, we couldn't do begging. So we did have several odd jobs to support our life. 3 Japanese monks lived in the woods in the Western Massachusetts, and we cut the trees and dig stumps and made green vegetable gardens and supported our life by doing odd jobs like picking blueberries or working for a potato farm for harvesting, or there was a tofu factory there. So we had a part-time job. We only worked few times days a week. We lived in a very poor life. I think our income, all 3 of us, was about $500 a month. That's how we lived. And we continued to practice and ZEN and working on the land to make it a livable place. I spent life in that way until I became 30. Language is a problem in Buddhism, not only in Buddhism, in all human cultures. Especially in Buddhism, when Buddha awakened to the reality or Dharma, he had hesitation to teach, because it said he thought that truth or reality he discovered was too deep and too subtle, beyond human thinking. Therefore, there's no way to communicate with other people. Even he explained, no one could understand. So he said he thought it's easier for him to just be there by himself and quietly die. But somehow, the god, Indian god Brahma, came down and asked him to teach. I think that was a very difficult time for Buddha. In order to teach, he has to translate what he experienced into language. And that it took at least several weeks for him how to teach, how to express what he discovered using language. So it was a big challenge. And this challenge for Shakyamuni still continues today. What is the Dharma as reality? And what is the expression of Dharma or explanation of Dharma using language? When we study even Buddhist sutras, we are thinking using discriminating mind, and we think using concept and logics. That is how our brain works. Otherwise, we don't understand what is said. Often, this written teaching or written expression of the reality is called a finger in Zen tradition. Finger that point the moon. So the real thing is not finger, but the moon. But often we think about the finger. So it's really a challenge for all Buddhists. How can we see the moon instead of finger? Zen masters, without explaining using words, concept, and logics, their famous teaching method is hitting, shouting, and speaking something nonsense. That is to help their student to become free from their conceptual thinking. That is one part of very important Zen teaching. Religion is a kind of a tricky word. Uchiyama Roshi said, I don't like religion. In a kind of a common sense, religion is something we have to believe, even though it's difficult to believe. Let me talk about what religion in Japanese means. The equivalent Japanese word for religion is shūkyō. Shū literally means basic truth or reality, and kyo is teaching. Originally, shūkyō is a Buddhist word. That means the reality Buddha awakened to, and Buddha's teaching, the basic reality and about the teaching about that reality. That is the definition of what shūkyō means. And this word shūkyō is used as an equivalent of English word religion. And religion means to be connected with God again, right? To recover the connection. So religion and Japanese word shūkyō are two different things. And yet, we use as an equivalent. That is kind of a problem. When Uchiyama Roshi talks about religion, he's thinking about shūkyō. That is basic reality and teaching about that reality. Importance of religion or shūkyō in these modern times is we need to awake to that fundamental reality in which we are living together with all beings. And how we need to think how we can live without, in a sense, destroying the interconnectedness, or destroying or injured. But modern civilization, destroy that or injured the interconnectedness. We don't mind about some living beings cease to be if we are happy. or to make our life more convenient or materially abundant and enjoyable. We don't mind about other living beings. I think that is injuring or even destroying this interconnectedness. So to do so, to awake, that is a problem, or the problem of modern civilization or material civilization. We need to wake up or awaken to that basic reality and try to live that reality. If that is religion, or that if that is shukyo, then shukyo is, I think, most important thing for us modern people. But in that sense, religion is not some kind of doctrine, system of doctrine we have to believe without thinking. It's not an institution. Yeah, awareness or awakening and practice based on that awakening. How we are. About a teacher, Dogen Zenji said, without true teacher, it's better not to practice. So having a true teacher, finding a true teacher is most important thing. And to me, Uchiyama Roshi, my teacher, was a true teacher, and I was really fortunate from the very beginning. I found a good teacher. Dogen says it's important to have a true teacher, and I thought my Uchiyama Roshi was a true teacher. But Uchiyama Roshi said, I'm not true teacher. I cannot be true teacher. True teacher is you are the Zen. No human beings can be absolutely true teacher. All human beings are simply ordinary beings. That is one thing he said. So true teacher is the Dharma and Buddha and our practice. No human beings can be true teacher. That is one thing he said. And another side he said, as a human beings, true teacher is a person who don't say, I am true teacher. I make no mistakes, so you have to follow everything I say. You have to believe everything I teach. But you should see this is an ordinary human being, so it might make mistakes. And for him, that is true teacher. The true teacher should not think he is true teacher. So I think there's both identity and disidentity. That is very important point. He didn't attach himself to become or to be a true teacher, but he is always humble, and he always say, I cannot do this, and I cannot be always correct, and that is fine. But to teach that all human beings are limited is true teaching. I cannot say in general, but in my case, when I was in confusion, I have many questions about life. As an example, Uchiyama Roshi shows how to live as a way seekers. I think to me that was most deepest service I received, most deepest offerings human beings can do. Of course, there are so many good things to do, and that is all good. But to show the deep meaning of life, or how we are within interconnectedness, and show it as an actual concrete example, I think that was most or deepest offering one person can do.